Welcome back everyone. I hope everyone is alright and everyone had a good week. I know it must be very hard for some people in lockdown. In France we have a curfew from 6 p.m. so I don't know if I prefer that or lockdown. Anyway, I hope you're gonna enjoy this video because today is gonna be a little my favorite podcast, because I always show the podcast I'm listening to, but I never talked about my favorite podcasts. So I have my paper with all the lists and I hope you'll enjoy it, because I know loads of people don't listen to podcasts, but I listen to them all the time. I listen to them when I cook, when I go shopping, when I go on a walk, or when I drive. Everywhere, at any time. So, and just before going to bed sometimes, so I have a voice, but it really depends the podcast, because some of them I couldn't listen to them before going to bed because I love too much. So let's get started. Ooh, oh, my little plant, she's alright. So one of the first one I started to listen when I started listening to podcasts was Deliciously Ella by Ella Mills. It's a podcast about health, wellness, mental health, nutrition, exercise, veganism, environment, everything. The episodes are around 40 minutes an hour. It is hosted by Ella Mills. You probably know her. She and her husband have a food brand called Deliciously Ella, I think. They'll have bars, energy balls, granola, and I think they have also crisps now and brownie that you can find in Tesco, I believe. Usually the host is alone. I mean, Ella is alone, but she has sometimes some conversations with experts, and the lighting is weird, but that's better, sorry. So I learned so many things with this podcast. I'll always end up inspired to change things in my life around nutrition, around my relationship with exercise and everything. This podcast helped a lot, and it changes my mood, honestly. When I listen to it, if I'm not in a good mood after that, you know that I will feel inspired to be healthy, to have a routine and everything. So I really recommend listening to it, and Ella's voice is so soothing and calming. So yeah, definitely Deliciously Ella. Another one of my favorite is Acting My Age by Roanie Helise. So in this podcast she talks about life, and I'll quote from the description. It dives into the many transition women go through. So basically everything around being 20, and I mean being into 20s, because I think she's 24. No, she's younger than that. She's only 23, I believe. I don't know. Oh, sorry. The episodes are about an hour, so it's quite long, I reckon. But I love listening to long podcasts. When I go on a walk, so I know I'll just listen to the whole thing when I'm walking. So it's by Roanie Helise. She's a YouTuber and an Instagrammer. I think I discovered firstly her podcast through Moya Mohani and Nanette Florence, because she got them interviewed. So, and the episodes were so fun and just very inspiring, because Moya and Naina are one of my favorite YouTubers, but I'll just talk about that because they have a podcast as well. So she's usually alone, but sometimes she has some friends or family or her husband that's super good together. I always end up feeling inspired. Again, I don't know, it makes me feel like I'm not alone to experience I don't know, being in this 20s, and it's kind of weird. So yeah, I love our episode about spirituality and astrology, but I think one of my favorite series that she does is the Sex Talk. So it might be weird, but she has so many fun stories, and I always end up laughing so much, crying of laughter. And she did it with some friends as well, and they have the most amazing stories to tell, and they have very great advices. So go listen to that. So next, To Be Honest podcast. It's a podcast that questions when you're 20 again. I feel like all the podcasts I'm listening to are about life, and I don't really listen to historical crime thingy because I don't know, I always feel very inspired, and the people all around the world live the same thing. So yeah, it's about like friendship, mental health, love, relationship with food, everything. It's just so good. So it's hosted by the housemates and their best friend, Amanda Dex and Cara Reddy. The episodes are around an hour, sometimes more, but they are so funny. And I mean, not always funny, but they're so inspiring, and I love their voice, like they're Australian, so I love their accents. It's usually just the two of them, but they had an episode about friendship with loads of the friends, and it was amazing. Once again, it's very relatable, and I love their jokes, and they give super great advice. So definitely recommend this one if you like. It's kind of light-hearted, but at the same time they talk about very important matters. So yeah, I talked about Nina Florence here again, Growing with the Flow, her podcast that she started 2 months ago, not too long ago. It's a podcast about like transitioning to adulthood and building a life you love. The episodes are around 40 minutes. It's hosted so by Nina Florence, a YouTuber that I've followed for like, I guess, a year, more than a year now. I love her. She's a student in Edinburgh, and I love her vlogs. It makes me feel so happy to see her vlogs, like it's so soothing and calming. So she's amazing. It's just her because there are like only 4 or 5 episodes, but it's only her, and maybe one day we'll see with some people. I mean, we'll hear her about with some people. Again, it's very relatable. I love her voice. It's so soothing. We're almost the same age, since she's just a year younger, and we have kind of the same life experience. And yeah, just love her podcast. Her podcast about uni was so interesting because even though I did most of my uni in France, I did my Erasmus last year. I got an email. I did my Erasmus last year in York. So it was very interesting to see her talking about Edinburgh Uni. So there's that. Okay, next is the girl bathroom. It's one of my all-time favorite. Like when I'm down, I would listen to one of the podcasts, because I haven't listened to all of them because I started to listen to it only since November. I think November is when lockdown was in France, and that's when I did my daily walks, and I would listen to it religiously. So there are 2 different types of like episodes. The girl talk, it's about friendship and just girl talk, and then there is a boy talk, and boy talk is, I think, one of my favorite. And this boy and girl talk, they're answering people's dilemmas and questions about boys' problem or friendship, and I just love them. They're so funny. I could listen to them like they're all best friends, so they know each other quite well, and I can listen to them all day long, for real. They are YouTubers, so it's Sophia and Cynthia. They're best friends, YouTubers, and I love that channel. The episodes are around 40-50 minutes, and it's usually just the 2 of them. But there was an episode with, I think it was a boy talk, but there was an episode with Harry from Too Hot to Handle, and best episodes. He's the funniest. He's maybe a dick, but he's fun. I always end up crying of laughter again. They're very fun, and they feel like my sisters or friends. Like, that's something I could talk about with my friends. So just listening to them, and sometimes I try to insert the dilemmas myself, because relatable. So they give great advice, and I think I took good advice from her for some of my relationships. So yeah, and the generic, like the soundtrack that they put, is so catchy. Like, anyway, you should listen to it, definitely. And then next one is Dada. It's a podcast very recent. It's by Moya and Lauren. Moya Moini, who is a YouTuber. She's one of my favorite YouTuber ever, for real. I love her vlogs. She's Irish and I love their accents. The podcast is like chit chat around a glass of wine. They talk about like various subjects. I loved the one about the dynamics of a party, like dinner edition. They talk about the dynamics of, I mean, it's self-explanatory. The episodes are about 30 minutes, so it's quite short compared to the others, but it's fun. It's just the two of them, and again, very relatable. We kind of have the same experiences in terms of like, I don't know, school life, boys, friends, and whatever. So yeah, very fun, love that. And just two more. Another one is Lexi. I mean, at Lexi. Again, it's about real life questions. She is really funny. The episode's about 40 minutes an hour. It's hosted by Lexi Lombard. I've discovered quite recently, so I'm not sure she has a YouTube channel or whatever. She has an Instagram and her page is so pretty. I love her stories. She's really fun. She's super fun. We don't have the same life at all. Like, she's American. She lives alone in New York, I think. I'm not too sure about that, but I think she stayed out in a podcast. But I love hearing her, and I love discovering her life. Her episode about being a hot girl was super fun. She has the best experiences. Like, she did loads of things. I think she's around my age. I'm 21 and I think she's like 23. So yeah, but she did loads of stuff in her life. So yeah, that's really fun. And I think the last one is a bit different. It's by a guy. It's Red Wine Talk by Damon Dominic. The podcast is like wine chats about loads of different subjects, again, like life. The episodes are around 20-30 minutes, but it's because it's firstly a YouTube video, but because he's a YouTuber, and then it's a podcast. So Damon Dominic is a YouTuber. He's an American living in France, in Paris, and it's so funny hearing his experience of France coming from an American, and he's super fun. He has always a guest. They are either American, some are French, so the conversations are very interesting. It's very chill. He talks about loads of subjects, but I love all of them, and the guests are always so funny. Like, they have, I don't know, they have like amazing lives. It's crazy. And yeah, so this is my list of all my favorite podcasts. I will link them on the description. And for my fellow French who are listening to it, so these are only English podcasts, but favorite French one is À bientôt de te revoir. So if you want to listen to that, it's by Sophie Marie Larouille. She's the best. It's so funny. And yeah, so if you're not French, you could just listen to that. If you are learning French or whatever, they talk quite fast, but I'm sure you can understand something if you learn French. So yeah, this was my little video, and I hope you enjoyed. I listened to so many podcasts that I just did my favorite, but I have loads of them. So if you want to listen to a bit more of my favorite podcasts, just tell me, and I would love to know what kind of podcast and which podcast you're listening to, because I'm always looking for new ones. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know the podcast you're listening to, and see you next week.